Liz, hi, Liz, you're a WellSprings member. I'm grateful that you volunteered. You were one of the first people to volunteer to do this. And especially because you're not just a WellSprings member, you're also a school counselor. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm a school social worker, so a little different, but.
Okay. School social worker. So tell us a little bit about where you work and what is your role? What do you do?
Sure. So I'm a school social worker for a public school out in Western Montgomery County. And typically my role pre-COVID closure was I had a counseling caseload that I carried. I support homeless and foster youth in the district and in our community. I do a lot of community outreach for resources for families. And I also have the not so fun jobs of residency investigations and truancy. So it all has to happen. Somebody has to do it. So those are kind of the big pieces that I take care of. Since COVID hit and we've become virtual, my role has become a lot more focused on community resource, supporting families. I've done a lot of couple town hall meetings about mental health resources and that sort of thing, and working with parents through this. So I've been doing it for 13 years. Today marks the start of my 13th year, which is kind of ironic, right? Year 13 starts in the middle of a pandemic, but
lucky 13, yeah.
Lucky 13. So I think before this, I would have called myself like an expert in school social work. And now I feel like everybody who's in education, it's new to all of us, right? Like we're all navigating this together. So it's kind of nice because it really has leveled the playing field and we're all really learning together. So while I'm happy to talk about supporting kids through virtual learning, I'm no means an expert in virtual learning. I'm learning right there with all of our parents. So
yeah, everybody's figuring it out right now as they go. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you're also a parent yourself. So how did online learning go for you all in your house this spring?
So spring online learning was one of my kids just walked by. Sorry. Positive and negative. So I had everybody home with me, and I think we did get into like a good routine. It took us a while. I mean, it took us a few weeks to kind of really settle into it. And I think that the main difference for us in the spring versus what's hopefully going to be in the fall is that in the spring, I felt like so much anxiety around, are we going back? When are we going back? It was 2 weeks, and then it was 4 weeks, and then it was the rest of the school year. And so I feel like everybody kind of held their breath here. Like, well, how long are we going to do this? How serious do we have to get? I kind of just like plunked the kids around the kitchen island, and we got done what we could get done. It was like crisis education, for no better term to use. So I think that they did okay. And I think that my kids actually, once Governor Wolf said there's no more school this year, I think we actually did better at that point, because we could all kind of say like, okay, we're going to commit to this and commit to getting through this. And I think we did okay. I think also like setting our own expectations. First week that school was closed, I think you probably saw it on your Facebook feed too. Like all of these parents, myself included, were posting these like amazing, cool things that they were doing, right? Like
the daily schedules, the color coding, all
that. Yeah. And it very quickly all went away. And I remember like St. Patrick's Day with the kids. I was so excited. They all wore their little Ireland sweatshirts that my parents had brought from their trip, and we baked soda bread. We did a lunch Zoom with you that day. We tuned in. We like studied castle architecture and then used toothpicks and marshmallows to build our own castles. And I thought, like, I am a homeschool pro.
Right.
And the next morning we were all in tears, like, we can't do this. Everybody's overwhelmed. There's too much going on.
It lasted one day.
We had one really good day. I think like the majority of other parents. So, I think then once we like got back into our routine and had some better expectations for ourselves, because I was still working. So I really learned very quickly I couldn't keep up all those things that I would like to do because I still had both roles going on, which is, a pretty unfair expectation to a lot of parents, even going into this. So many of us are working from home while working with our kids. And, you know, everybody has a different level of support and ability in terms of what help they can bring in, or their comfort in sending their kids other places. And so I think just being supportive of each other and supporting that everybody is in a different space in this, and all of those spaces are okay places to be, is important.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of conversations online about expectations and about kind of saying, you know, let's take it down a notch. I'm wondering, how did you, or how did you articulate those expectations to your kids at their different ages? You know, I've seen a lot of parents saying, okay, we don't want to have the color-coded daily schedule. We can't be perfect. We have to give ourselves a break. But I guess that's one of the things I wonder is, you know, how do you have that conversation with your kids that's not just like, okay, we give up, you know, we're letting everything go, but also not the color-coded schedule? How do you navigate that?
So it's definitely tough. And I think all for my kids' school, it seems like it is almost going more in a direction of that color-coded schedule. My kids' school is going to be synchronous almost all day. And by my kids' school, I mean, I'm talking about where my kids are attending. My school's a little bit different where I work, but where my kids are attending, they're going to be synchronous all day. And the initial schedules that we have out to us, while I can understand from the education side that they want to keep it really close to what the in-person schedule is going to look like, I think that there's some barriers. Like, you know, my kids really only have each other to socialize with at this point in person. And now we're looking at a schedule where they don't even have the same lunchtime. So it's kind of, you know, setting expectations I've kind of waited on with them because things are changing and evolving. And now that our year's been pushed back a couple of weeks for them, I really want to wait and see if we're going to get further guidance on that, and then kind of come up with a plan as a family. And I think just, you know, for my kids right now, what I'm trying to do is just like model for them, right? Like I had to start work today, but I have them here, and like just model some positivity and not really, you know, making sure that my like negative self-talk and things like that are kind of held for a private space. And I'm not talking about that in front of them. I'm talking about the positives, that we get to be home together and that we're going to get through it together. You know, showing them that persistence is important and trying their hardest is important, but I haven't said it directly, but you know, the outcome isn't really what is most important to me. The importance for me is emphasizing that they need to try their best and know that it's okay to like not really feel okay about it. It's kind of more what Drew and I are modeling with the kids, and talking about with them.
Yeah, that's such a good point. You know, when you said think about the positives, I was thinking so much about, again, what I see on social media, not as a parent myself, is, you know, like people talk about trying to focus on the positives as opposed to complaining about the systems, right? Complaining about the structures, complaining about what we have to deal with. But I love that you also talked about the positives in terms of your own self-talk, you know, and making sure that you and the kids don't fall into the trap of like, I'm failing, I'm not good at this, I can't figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
Because it's not, this is, like you said, we are all figuring this out as it goes, you know, nobody trained any of us to operate in this way. And that can be a really self-defeating trap, I'm sure, to fall into also, to think that it's your fault that this isn't working. Like, no, it's the fault of a tiny virus. Like, it is not, or, you know, depending on your perspective, maybe our national leadership, right? But not you. This was never in your job description as a parent. So, and it's not in their job description as kids to have to suddenly shift and do this different.
I'm saying, you know, if I'm kind of like outwardly vocalizing any opposition or any negative feelings that I have about it in front of my kids, but then my message to them also turns into like, well, but we have to do it and sit at your laptop and get your work done. It just doesn't really mesh. So I try, you know, I watch our board meetings, but I try to keep my thoughts about them separate from my interactions with the kids. But I do also think, you know, We've had a lot of like really honest conversations with the kids about the virus. And I think at first we tried, especially since we were home, we tried not to share like too much with them about it. I got like really hooked very quickly on the CNN sinkhole, just watching it all day long. I still could, but having that like in the background for the kids was really starting to become, I think, detrimental. And just kind of like asking the kids about, you know, what do you know about the virus and what do you think about this and how are you feeling? I think I didn't start off strong enough for that. So it would be something that I would suggest for parents is really just having open conversations with their kids for understanding. Like Toby one night, I was putting him to bed and he started crying, and you know, that's like not a total abnormal thing in this. You know, kids are so like, just their emotions are so high and our emotions are so high.
For me too, yeah.
Adults also, right? Like I have no idea what's going on and when we're going to be able to go back to normal. I'd love to. But he said, I'm just really sad that now every time I go to school forever, I'm going to have to wear a mask. And I was like, oh wait, like time out for a second. It's not a forever thing. But I had never like explicitly said that to them, that this is, you know, a time, this is just a period of time. This isn't forever. We're not going to wear masks the rest of our lives. But, you know, we as adults can rationalize that, but kids just, you know, that's their new expectation of it. So it was just kind of one of those things, you know?
And adults might have an easier time with, we don't know how long we're going to have to wear masks, but it probably will not be forever, your entire life, you know, and that uncertainty, that there's an easier distinction there to make. But to your point, you wouldn't know that unless you had that kind of opportunity for him to be able to speak up and share and know that he could not be okay, you know, that it's okay to not be okay with mom. Yeah. Your kids, do they go to two different schools in your district, or are they both in elementary?
So this year, they'll be at two different buildings. So Natalie goes to, they call it the intermediate unit. I've been calling it middle school. It's just easier for me in my brain, but that starts in 5th grade. So, you know, I really wish that it would definitely be easier for me if they were in the same building still this year, especially if they were both in elementary, because I'm so comfortable with that. Like I know the key players, you know, I can just reach out to teachers and principals and know that things are okay. But, you know, we're gonna get through it. I certainly wish they were still in the same building for purpose of, you know, Natalie didn't really get a whole lot of closure at the end of elementary with that part of her, you know, schooling. So that's definitely something that we've talked a lot about, you know, missing those kind of milestones and being aware that kids are having those. Like, well, this is what we missed in the spring, right? You missed your 4th grade pool party and you missed your 4th grade graduation, but there are some things that I can still do and make really normal for them for the start of school. So like, you know, everybody is still getting new shoes, even though we're going to be virtual. Like it's just something we do every year. You know, everybody gets a new backpack, new shoes, and maybe it seems a little bit funny, but it feels normal to them. I'm like a big fan of chalkboard first day pictures. So I do them every year for the kids. We're still going to do them this year. I gave them the choice of like, hey, do you want to wear a mask in it to kind of like freeze this moment in time or not? So kind of finding those moments to still, even though it's such a crazy start to the school year, like still giving them that feel of normalcy. Is something that I've been trying to do with the kids.
I love that idea of keeping up the rituals that you can, even if you don't need to. Like they're not going to probably wear their shoes half the time that they're home learning. I don't have shoes on right now, but it's something you can do. That's really nice. And so you have 3 kids. Natalie's in 5th grade. It sounds like Toby's is in 3rd.
Toby's going into 2nd, and then Porter was 2 in June. So preschooler, elementary, and middle school. Yeah.
So so you have your kids attending one school district, but you're one of those people who's in that situation where you're a staff member in a different school district. Yeah. So what is the school district where you work doing for the fall? Are they doing some kind of hybrid? Is everything online? How is it working where you work?
So where I work, we're also going all virtual, and I'm really thankful that we are, because my biggest concern in this my district where my kids attend made a decision a few weeks ahead of the district where I work, because I think that the district where I work really wanted to try to have some safe in-person instruction. So they kind of wanted to wait, and things were really shifting around that time anyway. So I think waiting a couple of weeks gave them some more data. But I was really stressed out about, okay, well now my kids are home learning virtually through November, but I still might be in the building. And man, what does that look like? So we had about, 75 contingency plans going at all times of like, well, you can work home these days and maybe my mom can help. And then we thought, well, maybe we're just going to have to put them back in a daycare situation. So we really kind of just looked into every option available to us. And then thankfully, my district decided to do virtual also. So that piece kind of, that one stressor came off the table in terms of being able to plan for my district and the kids' district.
Yeah. Are they doing all virtual for all grades?
Yeah, they're doing all virtual for all grades in both districts. So, we'll see how that evolves. They have different return dates, but I'm trying not to focus too much on that because I think that things will change and shift and continue to, just like they've been doing every couple weeks. So I'm trying to not focus too much on those pieces, and we'll overcome that hurdle when we have to.
In your job, do you have parents who actually are reaching out to you asking for support with the same question, like how do I support my kids as they do school in a whole different way? Or are you not fielding questions so much, but just trying to be ready when questions come in?
No, they've definitely started. I mean, I had parents reach out even before the district that I worked for made a decision, just those who were kind of planning and talking and wanting to know, what daycares were offering school-age childcare. I talked to a lot of families who needed financial assistance in doing that, and how could they kind of start that process ahead of time. And just kind of talking through. I think a lot of parents just needed to hear that, like, just because what their neighbor is doing is different from what they need to do, that they're not doing anything wrong. Everybody's family needs are different. So, if you have a neighbor who says, absolutely, my kids aren't going to go anywhere, I don't want anybody in my home or out of my home, that's fine for the neighbor, but you have to do what's realistic in your household. So a lot of just, talking through those sorts of things, and just hearing that it's okay that everybody's struggling in this, and knowing that they're not the only parent. I mean, I think even for a lot of parents that I talk to, certainly depending on my comfort level with them, like, it was okay for me to share, like, I'm in the same boat with you. I don't know what to do and what's right. And here are some things I've thought of for my family, and maybe they would work for yours also.
Yeah. Well, do you have specific tips for parents who are going to be, let's say, at home with their kids, helping to manage the online learning? Are there recommendations that you would share with anybody watching?
Yeah, so I'm a big list and note taker, so I made a couple little notes.
Just a few, yeah.
Just a few, and I thought we could kind of just like dialogue through them. So yeah, sure. I didn't really put them in any order of importance, just kind of as they popped into my head. So, and I think some of them we've already talked about. Like a top one that I had was just like our own parental attitudes, and that like positive self-talk and modeling for them, reassuring them, open dialogue. I think we talked about all of those. I think like one that we didn't touch on, and I think is so important for parents who are home. I think it's important for parents who are home who, their role is that they're home, and also for parents that typically work outside of the home and now are working in the home. Like, self-care is huge. It's so important. And I know you talk about it, in your, I keep calling them your Zooms because I'm so used to being on Zoom, but like on your Facebook Lives and your lunch meetings, like self-care is huge, and finding what that is, if it's, and healthy self-care too. I mean, like, so many people talk about self-care and they're like, oh yeah, like self-care to me is watching Netflix by myself at the end of the day or whatever. But I don't know that that's always a great tool. Like, it's not really helping yourself build or grow. And so, finding the things that are, good self-care for you. So if it's going for a walk or gardening or being outside or, you know, like taking up an instrument. I don't know. We have a piano in the living room and I've never played it. The kids play it. And while we've been home, I'm like, I wonder if I should just like pull out their book and kind of start with this, you know, and kind of finding something to keep yourself mentally active and a break from all of the school stuff. Especially if parents are working from home and teaching their children at home, like it's really easy for them to fall out of their own routine. And maybe like, okay, my work hours used to be 9 to 5, but now I'm checking my email at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm still checking it at 10 o'clock at night. And like, now I really haven't disconnected my two roles at all. And it's just one big blurry mess. So for parents to really make sure that they're taking care of self-care, because it's, you know, it's like the oxygen mask on the plane, right? Like you have to take care of yourself before helping people around you. And we can't be helpful and positive for our kids if we can't be helpful and positive with ourselves.
Yeah, that's such an important thing to remember, and something that I think we need to set up reinforcements for ourselves if it's not easy or natural for us. Because, you know, I even living alone, I put reminders in my calendar every day to take a full hour at lunch, to step away from my computer, to actually make myself a lunch and not like grab a slice of cheese out of the fridge and a handful of nuts and call that my lunch. Like, it has been so helpful. I am such a better, happier person when I return to my work if I actually take that time. And I don't have a toddler pulling on my pants while I'm trying to work, and I don't have, you know, so I think I can imagine, especially for parents, needing to remember to be deliberate about that, because the environment around you will not push you into that. You know, I'm sure as a parent, the environment around you is much more likely to pull you in every direction for everyone else, rather than taking that time to make sure that you can show up as the better, happier, healthier person in the moment. Yeah.
So some other like more specific tips in terms of supporting students at home during virtual learning. You know, the importance of kind of like setting up and following routines. So, you know, like we're following our back to school routines of like getting our new backpacks and getting our school supplies and that sort of thing. And finding those ways to kind of make it still feel normal. First day pictures. But I think also that we don't know when our kids will be returning. You know, some schools are talking September, some October, some December. I know some in the community have already said January. We're not going to talk about returning before then. I think that those dates aren't firm, right? Like things will change. So this could be a long-term thing for this year. So I think some tips specific. Also for yourself is if you're a working parent home, is good for us, and you know, it's good for the kids too. So if you make them get up at a reasonable hour and have them go to bed at a reasonable hour, really follow those routines like you would just like if they were going to school. You know, they might want to fight you. I know my kids did in the spring. Like they don't want to brush their teeth in the morning or put their school clothes on. They just want to go to virtual school in their pajamas. But I think that they feel better about themselves when they kind of go through those morning daily practices and kind of set those routines and expectations for themselves. I think it can be good for kids to kind of like get into the mindset that like, okay, I'm moving from life into school life, even though I'm in the same environment, and this is how it's kind of different for me. So, you know, school spaces, I've had a lot of parents ask me about that. Like, you know, are you setting up desks for your kids? Like, what are you doing for your kids? And I feel like IKEA is probably making a killing on selling desks right now.
Yeah.
I've got one here in the living room for me. In the spring, we got one and set it up in the dining room for the kids. They each have one in their bedroom, and then there's one in the basement. And I'm going to have a lot of extra desks to give away at the end of this. But like it's kind of making some flexible spaces for them. I also got them those like lap desk things. They're like a pillow on the bottom and a hard surface on the top. So if they want to like hang out in my office space with me, they can. Because, you know, seeing kids learning in a school environment, it's not like what it looks like on TV, right? They're not staying in their desks all day long. They're moving, they're up and down, and whether the pencil sharpener or the bathroom break is to actually go to the bathroom or sharpen your pencil or just get like a mental break for a minute, the kids need to move. So I'm kind of trying to set up little spaces in various parts of the house so that they can kind of self-monitor that and move as necessary. So, to the extent that parents can do that, and it doesn't have to be a desk space, kids, like if you talk to occupational therapists, they'll all tell you how good it is for kids to work on the floor on their stomachs and writing. It's so good for their posture and their handwriting and just their core strength. Like, so you don't need to buy furniture and buy things. If you have a floor, like that's probably the best learning environment for them. Yeah, we should all start it. We should all be working laying on the floor. And, finding like opportunities too to make their learning fun and engaging with other people. So, my kids both really like reading. And so in the spring, we set up with my parents that each of the kids called my mom every day and read out loud to her. So Natalie really likes reading. It wasn't a push, but for Toby, he did need a little bit more of a push with it. And when he would get his language arts assignment, there'd usually be I don't want to do that. That story's boring. It's not about hockey, so I don't want to read it. But if I could pair it with well, why don't you Zoom with Mimi and you can read it to her? I had that buy-in. So if there's a grandparent or a family member or somebody, even if it's another parent, your kids call me and read and my kids will call you and read. Finding some ways to also get them some social exposure in that way, I think is really a good way to get some buy-in with the kids.
That's a great idea. And I'm sure your parents love it also.
Yeah, they look forward to it. So they've watched movies with them or read books to them. And, my poor dad has probably watched The Mighty Ducks 75 times with Toby now through closure. He's a real good sport about it. And he's a really big movie fan. So I think it's very difficult for him to, be okay with watching Mighty Ducks every Friday night with Toby. But if it keeps the connection, that's...
Yeah.
The good thing is they start it so late that Toby usually falls asleep 30 minutes into it. So then they can just disconnect and call it a day.
He's only seen the first 30 minutes of Mighty Ducks 70 times.
Right. I don't think he'll recommend it for spirit flicks. What else did I have on here? Yeah, I think also having fun. School is supposed to be fun. So if your kids have a recess break, maybe encourage them to not have it be on a device. If they can get outside safely, let them get outside safely, or, play a board game if possible, or some kind of non-screen driven activity just to kind of give the brain a rest from that. And I think it's good for parents too, right? If I shut my laptop for a half hour in the middle of the day to have lunch and play with the kids, just kind of what you talked about with kind of disconnecting and actually making lunch, it's helpful. I'm going to pack lunches for my kids, just like I would if they were going to school. I don't know if that's just what worked for us. It might not work for every household. I think it works.
Kids have lunch breaks at different times in their school day also. Yeah. So that's what you give them their lunch at the beginning of the day and then they have it ready.
Yeah. I'm going to just leave them in the fridge and at their lunch break, they can grab it. Yeah. I'll let you know how big the temper tantrum is on the first week when one kid gets to eat lunch at 11:30 and one has to wait till 1:15.
One too early and one too late. That's always how it works.
I know. I mean, honestly, I'm probably just going to have whatever. We'll pick one of the lunch times and one kid will wind up eating while they're Zooming with their class. I mean, it just... And then maybe we do something different. Then I can have one-on-one time with the kid who's having the lunch break. And then maybe later in the day when the other kid should be eating lunch, I could do something independently with them. So, it goes back to that flexibility, right? And just, and kind of what's right for your kids and for your family.
I was going to say that gives everybody a little more flexibility also. If their lunch is already packed, if they get hungry, they can grab it. And they don't have to find you who's trying to do your job from home and pull you out of whatever you're doing to make lunch in the middle of the day. Yeah. That makes so much sense. There's all these things that because you're home, you think, oh, I don't need to do, but I'm seeing the rationale of like, you might still want to do some of those things the way you used to, like packing a lunch or, yeah.
Yeah, I think like we're still gonna like lay out our clothes the night before. Like that's something we always did for school, and it just kind of takes. My work day is gonna start at 7:20, so I need to be really hitting the road pretty early. So whatever I can do the night before, just like if I was gonna drop them off at before care or daycare pre-COVID, I'm gonna just go with it. I think it helps them also understand. I think I'm going to do the same with packing snacks for them. Like you have a snack time at school, you're going to have a snack time here at home, because my snack budget is like through the roof between me and the kids. Like the amount of Cheez-Its that have gone through this house and bars. I'm like, guys, I just bought this. 48 granola bars later, they're gone.
Yeah. But you're home all the time. It's right there.
We're home all the time, Lee.
Did you do some of these things in the spring, or are some of these, like, did you try any of these out in the spring, or is this kind of like after the summer and you thought about it, these are things you're going to try out now?
I would say towards the end, like maybe parts of May. I think May was really our strongest month. Once we knew, March was a disaster, and just, are we going back? Are we not going back? Spring was like crisis education. I feel like this is really going to be meaningful virtual learning. I mean, there's still expectations from the school. So we tried some of them. I'd say May was a really good month. We were really in the flow and we had our routine down. June went backwards. It was a big slide because everybody kind of slides backwards in June anyway. And I can't even believe that I'll admit this on Facebook Live, but here's my June schooling Facebook Live confession. Toby threw a fit about his foundations work the final week of school. He had to do these things called boom cards where you like Oh no, you froze. Did you hear me?
I heard part of that you did them part of the time for him the last week of June.
Oh, are you back?
Yeah. Going out.
Uh-oh.
I can see you now. Can you see me?
Are you there?
I'm here now. I can see myself. All right. Am I going in and out?
You're going in and out, yeah.
All right. Well, I can hear you. So.
All right, cool. So
I got the part of the story that was that he hated something so much that you did some of them for him at the end of June.
Yeah, the last week of school. I said, okay, if you did everything else, I'll do your boom cards for you.
I am sure you're not the only parent that did something.
No way. I'm sure a lot of parents did it. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it for the fall.
Yeah. Well, and I see we have people watching, so I want to make sure if I'm not going in and out again, hopefully, I'm going to have to fix my Wi-Fi before I do this again. That if people have questions also for Liz, questions that they want to just, or experiences they want to share of what they're thinking about for schooling for this fall and how to support your kids. But Liz, you probably have a couple more things on your list maybe, but before we get into them, I want to make sure people know that they can write in the comments any questions that you have about, specific situations with your kids, your ages of kids, worries that you have about how to support them in the school year ahead and how you can be there for them while they're learning online or hybrid or however your school district is doing it. So feel free to add questions in the comments.
Yeah, definitely. If there's questions, throw them out there. I can open it on my laptop. Do you want me to see, or can you see comments from your end? I don't think I can.
I can see them, so I'll read them out if there's any questions that come in.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I guess my next one would just be, like as a parent, as much as you can engage in their learning, I know we've talked about like meals together, outdoor play, just understanding the learning platform that your kids are using, if it's Schoology or Canvas or gosh, what are they using? Google Classroom. There's like a million of them. So trying to kind of understand how they navigate can be helpful, and maybe just, you know, kind of putting a little power on the kids in that. Like, can you teach me how to navigate your Google Classroom? Like, you look really, like you're doing a really good job with that. Can you teach me? And even, you know, through the school year, like just asking them like, hey, I saw you just doing something really different in math today. Like, could you teach that to me? Natalie taught me how to do long division for fractions in the spring. And I wanted to pull out my hair, but she was like, no, Mom, it's not that big of a deal. Like, I can teach you. And it made her feel really good about herself. It made me feel like I probably missed all of 4th grade math, but, you know, I was back in the game. And finding times to connect with them on, you know, that teach me approach, but also like, hey, what's working for you? What's not working for you? Instead of like, did you have a good day, or that, you know, I think we've talked about that before, like finding more engaging questions for the kids, you know, what worked for you today? What was difficult for you today? Tell me something that you really liked learning about today. And I think the virtual model and even the hybrid model gives us more flexibility, you know, if there's something that really reaches a kid, and they want to know more about that, well, you know, this seems like a really great time to kind of work through that as a family. And like, okay, so Toby, you're really into space right now, but you only had 1 chapter of your science. No reason that he and I can't supplement that together and kind of keep expanding on that for him. And I do think that that's a benefit to parents kind of this year really seeing their kids' education and what their kids are learning. They can help expand and find ways for, you know, the kids to feel like they're experts and have a voice in what they're learning, because that's the biggest way to get buy-in. You know, if I just open my classroom on day 1 and start lecturing the kids, I'm going to lose them by day 3. But if we as parents and educators really find those connections and what's important and impactful to the kids, that's going to hook them in. My only other one that I have before people can, you know, do questions or comments or whatever, is, you know, this spring model, like I've mentioned a couple times, was like crisis education, right? So I think parents felt maybe reluctant to reach out to teachers or the school staff because it probably seemed like the school staff didn't know what they were doing. But I think it's really important for parents who are listening to this and other lives to know that teachers have not stopped working this summer. I mean, it's not specific to my district. Everybody in education wants this to be a good, meaningful education for the kids this fall. So we have been talking about this tirelessly all summer, like social emotional learning and connection and community, and how we need to build it from day 1. And a big part of that is the parents. We can't do it without them. And so the teachers are like eager to hear from parents, and we want to hear what's going well. We want to hear what's not going well. And, you know, if your kid's having a lot of success, reach out and tell us. If your kid's struggling, reach out and tell us. If they're struggling with academics, reach out to their teachers. If they're struggling with behavior or mental health or anxiety, like reach out to us too. We're all ready and ready to go with this. And we can't compare what happened in the spring to what's happening in the fall. The teams are ready to go and eager to really help kids. Not that they weren't eager and willing to go in the spring. We just didn't know what we were doing. I think now we have a good plan in place. And a lot of resources available. So don't ever feel like you can't reach out to educators or administrators, counselors, whatever. You know, just get in touch and we can help you navigate to the right person.
Yeah. That's a really good point also to make sure that I think to hear that reaching out even when things are going well is helpful, because if you reach out with, hey, here's something that's really working, or even here's something that I'm trying at home that's having a good effect, teachers have that, and staff also at schools like you have that ability to multiply that and say, oh, I heard an idea from a parent here, you know, here's something that I can share with everybody. When you talked about, you know, academic wise, reaching out to teachers, but then also social, emotional, or behavioral issues, reaching out in people's own school districts, who is that person likely to be to reach out to? Does every school typically have some, I mean, every school district has some kind of counseling staff or social worker staff, right? Are there other people that parents might be able to use as resources that they may not think of?
So I don't think that parents typically think of reaching out to a school social worker. So I would say that probably the safest point of contact as a first line would be the school counselors or the guidance counselors. And they could be able to refer families to school social workers, or school districts have to have student assistance program teams in place. We have, certainly if your student has special education needs, like looping in an IEP case manager or the special education department. But I think that starting with either, an administrator or a guidance counselor and just like really sharing, I mean, you don't even have to get into the nitty gritty of it, but, I have my kid at home with me, they're really struggling with anxiety, or every time I open the laptop, he slams it back down. I can't get them to work. Like, who do I need to talk to? Who do you have available to me? And what are my next steps? And, if you're comfortable sharing more than that, great. But I think even just hearing like a couple of those trigger things to know, like, okay, this needs to get to this person. So I don't want to say like one specific person to contact just because, every district seems to do it different. But I do think for the majority of districts, they'll have a school counselor or guidance counselor to at least start with.
Yeah. And that comes back to that good self-care and watching your own self-talk also, like recognizing that if that is a common issue in your home, the image of like my kids slamming the laptop down every day, right? Like is probably something that every parent has seen at some point in this process. Remembering that that's not like, oh, my kid can't figure this out, or I'm doing such a bad job, but that is endemic to the situation, and it's a cause to just reach out for support and share what's going on, rather than feeling that shame of maybe that some parents might feel in reaching out and saying, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Again, this is not what we trained for. This is a whole new ball game that we're playing. So being open about like, it's really not working, I really could use some help, is such a good piece of advice general in life. And for this, I think. Yeah.
I think too, also, like I didn't mention this on here, but pairing that the reach out, like if your kid's experiencing frustration or extreme sadness or just real reluctance, or a variety, it really could be anything. I think partnering, reaching out to the school, but also like as your parent, you still like the parent, you are still the expert in your child, right? So this virtual learning is good in a lot of ways. One of the things a lot of schools have been talking about is like, oh, great. Well, moving forward, snow days can like go away, right? We just go to this virtual learning model for the day. And, maybe sick days kind of go away for students because they can be, sick on the couch, but still tuned into their Zoom. But there are times where your kids still might need a sick day, a mental health day, like just a disconnect. And if you're learning that and seeing that, and it's something that like has worked for you in the past, to just say, you know what? We're like taking the afternoon off and we're going to do a reset and not do school right now. Like those things are still okay to do. Just because school's going to be open all 180 or 91 days, whatever it is in your situation, like it is okay to give yourself a break and also to give your kid a break. And just watching that it's not something that's paired with like an avoidance or trying to get out of things routinely, but we need days off. We need mental health days. We need vacation days, and kids do too. If not, probably even more so than us as adults sometimes.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, I was going to say, I am thinking of that as great advice for adults too, and thinking about your workplace. If you're working from home, when you're not feeling well, you might be like, well, I can still sit on the couch and answer email, so I guess I can still work. But like, if you would have taken it as a sick day, take it as a sick day. You still have sick days. You still have a body. You still need rest. You still need to repair every now and then. Same with vacation. I know early on when I was thinking about taking some time off from WellSprings, I was like, well, what am I going to do with the vacation week? Well, I'm not going to go anywhere. Like for me, especially earlier on, I was like, it was like a joke. Like, great, I'll fly to the Bahamas and enjoy my week off. Like, no, I'm just going to be sitting at home. But it makes a huge difference. I did a lot of hiking when I was on vacation, and now I'm kind of like familiar with places that I can go hike, and I bought myself a new pair of hiking shoes, and now it'll be easier to incorporate those kinds of self-activity when I have a little bit of time. So we still need those things. Yeah. Micah had a comment on the thread. Where is it? Micah says, do you know Micah Magruder? I think we actually were at an old-fashioned lunch once together.
Yeah, we did. I think at, I can't remember which one I was at, but Micah was there. Yeah.
The Buttery, Malvern Buttery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Micah says, I feel more confident on this fall curriculum compared to spring. I think the teachers had a good amount of training going into this year. He says, we are in a virtual model. Micah says we did meet there. He said, we are in a virtual model until October, when we will reevaluate and go into hybrid. And they're on day 2. They started yesterday. And he said, so far, things are going well for us.
So he's teaching in the same district that his kids are
No,
attending?
Micah's not a teacher. I think he's just saying that it seems like the teachers have training and are more prepared, which makes sense because they had more than 48 hours notice to do this fall than they did in the spring. Yeah. Yeah. Micah, I know you have 3 kids, 2 of whom are twins. Are they all in the same like school, or is one in middle or two, or your, I guess your daughter's older. Is she in middle school and the twins are in elementary, or are they all in middle school? It'll take 45 seconds at least for him to write back. So.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Micah has 3 kids too, but they're all school age.
I wonder if they're home with him, or I know a lot of, I saw a lot of posts on Facebook yesterday of like, you know, families have kind of created like pods for themselves to kind of help. And, you know, I think it's a good option, you know, if you need assistance, and you know, I think it's good for the kids socially to be around others. I think if you can do it safely, it's a good way to do it. You know, we have a little girl and little boy right across the street from us, and their daughter is Natalie's age, and their son is just a year younger than Toby. But we've really just like been very open with them and kind of committed to some expectations. They're doing similar to us, where they want to really stay very very reserved in where they're going and their exposures, because they're also seeing a set of grandparents like we are. And so it's really allowed us to still let our kids safely interact with other kids. They go for neighborhood bike rides together. So I think that it's been really neat to see what parents are coming up with in terms of this like pod learning environment and how they're, you know, working to support each other.
Yeah. Micah said this year we requested the twin boys to be in the same class. And for spring because in the spring they had different teachers and different assignments, and that was a struggle to keep up. Yeah, that makes sense. Reaching out to the school to ask for things like that will just make your life a little easier. If you have kids the same age and you can put them in the same class with the same teacher, that streamlines a whole bunch, I'm sure. And Carol Breslin commented, she says, Liz, you inspired me self-care. She said, I have a piano and books. Maybe I will plunk around a bit. I have my own worries about my college age kids. Yeah.
College age kids are tough.
Has a sophomore and a freshman, I think, in college.
Okay. And they're both home for the semester?
No, I know this from talking to Carol. No, they both attend, well, her daughter, who's a sophomore, attends a college that is open. So she's moved back. And I don't remember, Carol, what the latest is. Her son attends UPitt in Pittsburgh. I don't remember what the latest was on what they were up to. Micah wrote again. Micah says, the twins are in 5th grade. It's easier to keep track of them with one teacher. Yeah. And he said, our daughter is in 8th grade. So she's got 8 different Zooms for each period. But so far, yikes. But so far doesn't feel overwhelmed on day 2, at least. That's good. He said some of the Zoom calls seem to end after 10 to 15 minutes of the period of self-study time.
You cut out a little bit on that part.
Wrong. Sorry, what were you going to say, Liz?
You cut out a little bit at the end of his comment about the 8 Zooms.
He said some of the calls seem to end after 10 to 15 minutes and the rest of the period of study time, self-study time.
Yeah. I know we talked about that at my school too. Like it's not typical for a teacher to stand in front of a class and lecture for a whole 45 or 50-minute period. But sorry, somebody just jumped off of some furniture upstairs. So maybe like teaching for 15 or 20 minutes, and then, these are the activities I want you to do over the next 20 minutes, and then we'll come back together for the last 5 of the class. I think every teacher is going to probably do it a little bit differently based on the needs of their class.
And Carol, sorry, I realized my knowledge of your children is out of date. Carol has a senior in college and a sophomore in college. Turns out they get older every year.
That happens.
Yeah, I don't know how that happens. Sorry, Carol. Well, I'm also looking at the time. I know we got started a little bit late, but it is 12:35, so I want to make sure that, Liz, do you still have work to do today, or was your day a half day?
Our day was a half day today, so this worked perfectly for me because some of the later in September dates would have been a little bit tricky in the middle of the day for me to kind of sneak away for a little bit. So this is definitely more helpful.
Yeah, that makes sense. Carol says they are both going to be on site. Okay, so Erin, her daughter, who's at University of Alabama, I think, right, is hybrid. And Joe, who's at Pittsburgh, is mostly virtual. Not the same challenges as school age for sure. She says your insight about under 18s is very insightful. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any kids in college, and I've never worked with kids post-secondary, but I think that it probably comes with its own set of challenges. Like my kids, I can say to them, it's not safe to go out with your friends right now because of the virus, and this is why we're staying home and why we're doing what we need to do. But if Natalie was 8 years older and had access to her own car, I think I'd be up for some real battles. I think I would.
I have talked with a lot of parents of college-age kids about how tricky it is to navigate that. Like, it's already part of that age range in parenting. It's like having to negotiate a whole new set of like, okay, you're an adult now and you can make certain decisions on your own, but also you're only 18, or I'm still financially supporting you, or maybe you're still living at home, and so we have to negotiate some overlap areas where you are going to respect what we say. Add a pandemic into that, and you get a whole new ball game of things you never thought you'd have to negotiate with your kids. So it's complicated. Yeah, Carol said, "Yup, Liz." Yup.
I don't envy it. I don't think that I think it just goes to show that there's no easy spot in any of this. There's just people are struggling on all avenues of it. And, like I've talked to some of my other mom friends who are like, oh my goodness, like it must be so nice to like not have kids in this pandemic. Well, sure. Are there times where that might be nice? Yeah. But is that also an opportunity to feel extremely isolated? Yeah. So I just think like we just have to be so careful with each other that everybody is in the thick of it, and it's hard for everybody. There's no person who has it easy in this, and just to be mindful of that in all of our interactions is important.
Amen. Yeah. There's somebody yelling. I can hear. Yeah. Amen, Liz. It is such an opportunity to exercise and practice compassion, because we all, this is a microcosm of what's always true, which is that we all have struggles in life, and they all look different from each other. So how can we just practice kindness, with ourselves and with each other, and not fight about who has it worse, not try to rank or diminish our own problems either, but just allow the thing that we're struggling with that's difficult to connect us to other people who are also struggling. And right now we're all in some kind of the thick of it. So, yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And also, I feel like I want to say thank you for the work that you do. If people join the stream late, they might have missed the beginning where you talked about, being a school social worker. It's also your job to support kids who are experiencing homelessness, to support families who need financial assistance, to even do online learning and virtual learning. And I know that's something that so many people are worried about in this whole conversation, is who is looking out for those families who can't just pick up an extra desk at IKEA, who don't have the space in their home to set up a dedicated learning area, who are dealing with basic survival issues on top of all this. So I just feel like I should say thank you for being somebody who is fighting the good fight in a larger system to make sure those people are still remembered and cared for. Thanks, Liz.
My they're my kids that I'm the most worried about in this, but I'm also the most excited to get back and be working with. They're my kids that I'm the most worried about.
Yeah.
My goal, I think, you know, they're really a great group of kids, and I'm anxious to be back in person with them, or not in person with them, connecting with them in some fashion of it. Yeah. So even if people comment later and have questions or whatever, I mean, I'm happy to share my email on the comment thread. Like if people have questions or want to reach out, or you know, whatever. If you want me to post articles or things, I'm happy to do that if you're okay with that.
I'm absolutely okay with that. That's a great idea. Yeah. As soon as we sign off, I'll hit finish, and it'll take probably a couple minutes, but it should upload the full video of our conversation, and you should be able to add in the comment thread your email address, and like you said, if you have articles or resources you want to share, and I'll include those when I share this video with other parents in the congregation who asked about it, who couldn't watch during the hours we were on today. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm definitely going to add it in the comments, but I'm sorry, I should have mentioned it earlier. I need like a 10-second plug. If you are in Pennsylvania, you need resources, you need help or support. So 211, mental health resources, crisis resources, housing, financial assistance, insurance. I'm going to link that for short comments, but in case people don't read the comments still live, it's a really good start. So I'll add my contact info.
Awesome. Good plug. That's a worthy plug. You don't have to apologize for that. All right. Thank you again, Liz. It's 12:40 now, so I'm going to give you back your day and make sure that you can have your packed lunch. This was great. Same. All right. I'll see you around on screens somewhere soon. Bye, everybody who's watching.
Bye, everyone.